Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah. So we will resume our discussion, sharing the screen. Meanwhile, what did we discuss in the last class? So some of you, can you brief very quickly a couple of points on what we discussed in last class? Okay, I need some inputs, quick inputs on what we discussed in last class. Yeah, Major Girish.
Sir, we discussed about batch normalization.
Yeah, right.
Uh,
Sandeep, what else? Path? We discussed about batch normalization and what else? Sandeep and Prabhat. Bhavana, quick inputs. Any other aspects of what we discussed?
We discussed about how to choose regularization parameter and learning rate simultaneously, and different steps of learning, training the neural network, like starting from the activation function to batch normalization.
Okay, we discussed about setting hyperparameters and different steps while training a neural network. Okay, fine. So any other aspects? One more aspect that we have discussed. Can one of you tell?
We discussed on how to tune the parameters, so the coarse to fine approach and the grid search.
Yeah, we discussed about training the parameter, setting the hyperparameters through grid search or random search. Fine, good. So one more other point.
We also discussed how the learning rate affects the convergence.
Yeah, what's the effect on convergence? Can you repeat, please?
So if the learning rate is too high, then the loss does not converge properly, and if the learning rate is too low, then it takes too much time to converge. So we'll need an optimal learning rate for proper convergence.
Very good. So we also discussed on the effect of learning rate in convergence. We didn't tell explicitly how to set any algorithmic or analytical procedure for setting the learning rate. But we said if we see the convergence over time, we will be able to tell. So which is a good learning rate or bad learning rate and so on. Right? Very good. So any other things? There is one more thing that is missing. We also discussed it on. Yeah, please go ahead.
Overfitting.
Yeah, we discussed on overfitting. So to observe from the last, from the last curves, especially over epochs. Also, where there is a overfitting happening or not, that we discussed. We also discussed about data, presenting the data as input. Okay, so in that context, to do it more like effectively, we said centering the data is important. Okay, and then also normalization is sometimes preferred, but PCA and whitening are for special applications. Okay, so let's continue our discussion with the help of slides from Professor Fifi Lee team. We were discussing about batch normalization, right? So let me complete the discussion on batch normalization, and then we will discuss a little more with the taking the help of the slides. Okay, so we in the previous class, if you remember, we discussed that batch normalization can be done both in feed-forward neural networks, and it is very important to do even in the convolution neural networks. Okay, so in feed-forward neural networks, we said when there is a batch normalization, effectively on the batch of samples that we take as input, we apply the averaging to find out the mean and variance values across each dimension. Okay, as you can see here, I hope you are able to see here. Okay, across each dimension, for each dimension D1, D2, D3, and so on, we are trying to find out the mean of the mean over the batch, right? That's what we do in feed-forward neural network. When we do batch normalization, we said that we will have a fully connected layer followed by the batch normalization layer followed by activation function. So that what happens, the range is effectively set for the batch with the batch normalization, and that is given to the activation function. So whether the activation function is a kind of saturating activation function or non-saturating activation function, we at least have a reasonable range in which the data samples are sent to the activation function at each layer. So this reduces the effect on initialization, reduces the effect of how we give the input features, first thing. Second thing is, it reduces the effect of initialization on the weights as well. Because these weights based on initialization of weights, if the range of weights is big, okay, then what happens? The output here also will be big after the fully connected layer. If the range of weights are very small, the outputs are small quantities, okay, small numbers. So, but this batch normalization effectively spreads this over a normal distribution of 0,1 or beta, gamma. Okay, with a known or learned parameter based distribution. Even this beta, gamma, beta and gamma can be learned over the network. That means I can put these two as a learning parameters. So that what happens at each layer, I am learning which is appropriate range to give it to the corresponding activation function. Okay, so that also can be done. And if we don't do that, we also have a provision to set to a particular values of the mean and variance or the distribution. Okay, so we are redistributing the feature space, okay, into the known distribution, right, and giving it to the activation function. Okay, and then that follows at each of the layer. Why are we doing at each of the layer? Any answer? Any quick answer? Why are we doing, or why are we proposing to do or suggested to do batch normalization at each layer? Yeah, quick answer is welcome.
So we want to set the range of inputs to the activation function.
Right. So we are using activation function at each layer. Okay, and then the activation functions usually has the limitation of having working in a specific range. Even if we consider ReLU activation function, okay, if all the values are negative, okay, net values are negative, okay, and here, then what happens? The ReLU activation function is completely dead. It's of no use. Okay, so it's better to have a reasonable range or known range at least. Okay, to have the features after we accumulate or we perform subsequent feature extraction stages, and that we want to do it before each activation. Okay, and that is done, taken care at each layer. And this also helps as a regularization. How does it help? See, regularization effectively is more biased. See, if why are we doing regularization? For say, one thing is the input samples itself may have a bias. Okay, training samples. So that can be avoided by redistributing the feature space. Okay. Also, we may have several solutions. See, if the range is from -∞ to infinity at each of the fully connected layer, even subsequently in a CNN layer, okay, what happens? There is a wide variety of solutions that are possible for mapping the input to the output. However, if we are limiting the range to a known range, okay, then only we are at least confining the solution space, or by confining the feature space. Okay, so hope you people understand the words feature space, solution space, all those things. Correct? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and through this, what we can do is we can also have a effective learning parameter. We can have a little larger learning parameter. so that we can learn, because we know we are doing in a constrained scenario. Okay, we can set a little higher learning parameter. Fine. So, and batch normalization, as I said, can be also be done in CNNs. Okay, and that can be done. Say what we do is we also want to average across the say batch in CNN. Okay, also across H and W. So that what we are doing, each dimension we are finding mean and variance here, right? So here also we are doing each dimension. Each dimension here mean each channel. Okay, so we are assuming that each channel, it's not like a feature dimension. Each channel is different, we are thinking, and for each channel we are trying to find out a mean and variance that we want to use to normalize the, say, all features, all samples. Okay, want to normalize all samples all across H and W dimensions. That means same mean and variance. Mean is subtracted from this image, right? You understand, right? This is a 2D image. From 2D image you subtract this mean, and that you do for each sample. Okay, same variance also we use. Also, this is how we do batch normalization in convolution neural networks. Okay, so this is referred to as batch normalization across the samples. Okay, across samples and input dimensions, image dimensions. Also, this one little more effectively if you want to do. So what can we do this? So this can be also be done through little more like freedom by setting a gamma and beta parameters. So here gamma times. So what are these gamma and beta parameters are doing? Any quick answer? Okay, you can also do it like this, even in convolution neural networks. Okay, so this gamma and beta parameters, what are they doing? A quick answer is welcome. You are clear or you are not clear? I am not listening from anyone. What is the role of gamma parameter and beta parameter? Okay.
Sir, we are redistributing our samples in the range of gamma and beta, sir.
Right. So we are redistributing the samples to, okay, xk double hat, if we see, they are redistributed to what? Beta comma gamma with a mean of beta. See, previously it is zero mean, right? So if you see x hat k, this is normal with zero mean and variance sigma. Fine. Okay. Is this variance sigma? Is this variance sigma?
Once.
All right, very good. You tell quickly. So I don't scold you people if you tell correct answer or even wrong answer. Okay. Yeah, fine. So it's what we are doing is we are redistributing from n normal 0, 1 to normal beta, gamma. Okay, this why are we redistributing? Sometimes we don't want to restrict to n01. We may want to put this even these two as learning parameters, or if we want to have a little different bias. Okay, through this. Okay, learn the bias itself. Okay, fine. See, batch normalization can be done in different ways, especially in CNNs. So we may have, as we discussed, okay, so we have actually the, say, HW here, image dimensions here, okay, and then M here, the number of samples here, okay, and then C in this direction. So number of channels here, right? So, so we can have actually say one batch. This is batch normalization in general, but if you want to do batch normalization across channels, okay, we can also do across channels. Okay, and if we can also do instance, that's referred to as across instance. Okay, so we can also do across, that means over H comma W for a given sample. So like that we can do batch normalization in different across different dimensions. Use the slides to depict here. So this is what we discussed before on the batch normalization. Okay, in feed forward networks, and subsequently this is in convolution neural networks. Okay, this is what just we discussed. Okay, and now this is layer wise normalization or channel wise normalization. Okay, so what we do in conventional neural networks is across dimensions we do, okay, or across layers we do, and then keep the batch samples as it is. Okay, so it's exactly almost the reverse of this. So in the sense that we are previously we were normalizing across the batch. Okay, so across the batch. Okay, now what we are doing is we are normalizing across the dimensions or the layer. Okay, so similarly even here what we do, we can do batch normalization across the channels also. So layer, so which you can see here that layer normalization means we average for a given batch, we will average HW and C. Okay, so batch normalization means we are averaging HW and N. Okay, so across HW and N we are normalizing for batch normalization, whereas for layer normalization across, okay, HW and C we are normalizing. So essentially what we are doing is it's not here, so we can write actually. So if we have actually xk n cross c cross h cross w, what we are doing in layer normalization is what? So we are not normalizing here. Okay, it will go like as it is. We are normalizing here. Okay, and then this also we are normalizing. Okay, and instance normalization means, okay, so for like over the image only we normalize. That's what is shown here. This is instance normalization. Okay, across only image dimensions we normalize. Instance is the given image, right? So across the given image we normalize. Okay, so like this we can have different ways of normalization, especially in convolutional networks, given that what we input here are images. Okay, so so we will discuss now on the optimization front. On the batch normalization, okay, these details are good enough. Any questions on batch normalization or any normalization aspects, instance normalization or layer normalization? Okay. So layer normalization means across the layers we normalize. Batch normalization means across the samples we normalize. Okay. So in batch and layer, both we are using even the image also to normalize, so that we have actually, so only the the mean and variances, okay, will be scalars. Okay, so whereas in instance normalization, what we are doing is only across the instance HW we normalize. And mean and variance will also be different for each of the instance, okay, and across each channel. Okay, that's what it happens. So mean and variance you can consider, instead of considering them as vectors, they are actually different for each sample and across each channel. I hope these things are clear. So now let us move on for the discussion on the optimization front. So on the layer normalization, yeah, please ask.
So when is layer normalization actually used?
Yeah. See, usually batch normalization is people use, okay, because batch normalization, we assume that there is a statistical variability in the samples, okay, and this batch normalization effectively takes care of them and put them into a common range, okay, because each input sample may have different information there. So we would like to, but the features are same for each of the input samples, and hence we want to put them into different, like same distribution or standard distribution. Okay, layer normalization mostly across different features. If we see that the some kind of standardization is required, then we use layer normalization. Effectively, what layer normalization is doing in feed-forward neural network, if you see, is nothing but you have dimensions and samples, right? So for each of the different samples, we are normalizing here. So in the sense that you are trying to find out each feature into the same range. So at each this layer normalization is exactly almost similar to the normalizing the input. Okay, so instead of normalizing the input at once, you are normalizing at each of the different layers.
Okay.
Yeah. Also, as we will see in, say, if you have the data like this, okay, the spread in one direction may be more and in another direction may be less. Okay, so in such case, what we do, we normalize across the different dimensions that we discussed, right? So if you see like this, okay, so this is like also. Yeah, if you see here, okay, in this direction, there is a good spread, in this direction, less spread, right? So if we see x1, x2, so same is the case, what is happening across different dimensions. Okay, so this this spread and this spread, if you want to make it same, then what we get is something like this. So this is being done by effectively by the input normalization, data normalization, input feature normalization. Same is being done even in layer normalization. So if we prefer to have give same importance to different features, then we can use feature normalization or the layer normalization. But if you want to counter more for the statistical variability in the input samples, then we use batch normalization. Hope it is clear.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, fine, good. So anyway, the instance normalization means we normalize for the given instance. So in that case, actually what we are doing is we are giving little more freedom. So we are not very keen on the regularization, especially we want to preserve the variability. Okay, so we are just, what we are doing is across the image dimensions, we are normalizing, that's all. I hope this is clear.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, right. So now let's discuss on the optimization front. See, usually what's the optimization that is used for minimizing the cost function in convolution neural networks or in feed-forward neural networks? So as you know, J of W or L of W is a function of all weight elements. Okay, and what we want to do with this is we want to minimize this. Okay, so in general, L of W, if you see, there may be L cross entropy or some loss function, okay, which is function of W plus lambda times the regularization, L regularizer of W, right? So, and this L of W is to be minimized with respect to what? All W's, right? So now what's the optimization that we frequently use for minimizing this? Yeah, quick answer. What is the optimization we use for minimization of this?
Gradient descent.
Yeah, gradient descent is what we use. Okay, so essentially any of the W t plus 1, if we see, what we do is WT minus eta times, what should I write here? So stochastic and batch gradient descent also can be used. So people frequently use stochastic gradient descent. What is the difference between stochastic gradient descent and batch gradient descent? Please tell if you know it.
Like one sample at each for each.
What's that? Can you repeat again? Be louder.
sample by sample. I mean,
Yeah,
one
sample
sample
by
at a
sample,
time.
we update the weights. Very good. So now what should I write here? Wt plus 1 equal to Wt minus eta times. Yeah, please tell quickly.
Dou L by dou W.
Yes, dou L by dou W. Okay, W at T. So far, this is done for each of the weight elements. So this can also be written as minus eta times del W. Okay, so we del W effectively is that actually dou L by dou W. Okay, so that the things are all in terms of W, right? So this is the learning rule. So this is the learning rule for updating the weights. So now what are the issues with this? So assume that if the cost L, so let's write the cost in 2 dimensions, even in 1 dimension first. Okay, let me later, let's bring in later more depictions, pictorial depictions on multiple dimensions. Assume that this is over epochs. Sorry. This is with respect to the W. Okay, and this is L of W. Okay, so I am just sketching with respect to single weight elements, how the loss is. Okay, something like this. Assume that. Okay, so where is the local minima? Here. So these are all the local minimas. Okay, and where is the global minima? Oh, this is the global minima, right? So see, there are some regions in the cost space where there are approximately constant. So if you see from the region from here to here, okay, so it's very smooth. It's almost constant. Again, here to here, if you see, it's almost constant. Okay, and the local minima usually are called saddle points. What's the property of the saddle points or local minima? What do you observe at local minima for at least delta W?
0.
0. Okay, so what's the effect then?
We won't get accurate result.
Yeah, so also that means we can't update the weights. Okay, so even the regions where there is a constant slope, okay, so almost say for example where there is a no variation in slope or 0 slope, okay, so the cost is roughly constant. So in such cases also those are called plateaus. I refer okay, so those are called plateaus. I think you can refer the spelling later. I will just write. Okay, so constant slope regions. Constant cost regions. Okay, slope 0. Slope at these points also. What's the slope? At these locations also. Will there any update happens?
No.
No. Also, even here slope is 0. So what happens? The weight update will be almost like inactive, or you can't use this gradient descent, okay, to get away from a local minima, or you can't even traverse or move in the low, 0 slope or low slope regions. See, even this region, if you see, this region also very smooth. Okay, it may have small gradients. Okay, in such regions, you can't move properly, right? So now what can we do in such cases? This is one problem. Okay, so how to traverse or how to move towards a better local minima or towards global minima? Okay, crossing over the local minimas or saddle points and plateaus. Okay, so this is one problem. Second problem is, see, if you assume that the cost, see, now let us plot the j in 2 dimensions. Okay, assume that we somehow have a, okay, j of w. So I am plotting j of w1 comma w. Okay, in 2 dimensions, as I said. Okay, so this j of w1 comma w2. This is w1 and this is w2 direction. How I am plotting j of w1 comma w2? Let us assume that this is an ellipse. Okay, so somehow this brings it to in like considering all other terms being constants. Okay, so this is like w1 by alpha whole square plus w2 by alpha whole square, beta or alpha or beta whole square plus some constant or whatever. So this has this form. Assume that. Okay, so and now if I want to plot the cost, I can't plot in 3D properly, right? So what I do is I plot the regions of uniform cost values. So they will be what? They will be what? I want to plot the contours of constant cost or constant loss. They will be what? Those contours will be what? How does those contours look at?
Elliptical.
They look at, they will be of how they will be?
Elliptical.
Yeah, they are elliptical. So I am plotting them now. So hope you people are able to visualize that there is a cost function. Let it be a, say this is the minima. Assume that. Okay, so just to have as, okay, this is the global minima, right? So this is global minima. Here also global minima. So how is the cost function now? Yeah, how is the cost function? If I plot it like this, okay, if I am from the information that I have given, how do you think is the cost function? Yeah, quick answer is welcome. What you people are doing? What shape is the cost function? You can't imagine? What is the shape? It's yeah, please tell.
It can be like a valley.
It's like a
Valley.
valley. Yeah, that's fine. It's a valley. What other thing? So it's not exactly like a cone, but it's a unsymmetrical cone. Okay, or it's like a unsymmetrical Gaussian. Okay, where you have actually variance in one direction being very high. Okay, the variance, it's a inverted Gaussian. Okay, it's a inverted bell otherwise. Okay, so where you can see that, but it is unsymmetrical, right? That means in one direction you have a very bulging, in another direction it is it's squeezed. Okay, so it's like that, right? Inverted bell. So now what may happen? So now I am starting at some point. Okay, assume that I am here. So the initial location where I am here is here. Now what I want to do is I want to update the weights. This is W1 and this is W2, right? So what can you comment about delta W1 versus delta W2? Delta W1 being defined as dou A by dou W1 and delta W2 being defined as dou A by dou W2. What can you comment between these two? Which is higher?
Dou J by dou W1 is higher.
Okay, dou A by dou W1 is higher. Is that higher? Or dou A by dou W2 is higher? In which direction the slope is more? See, it's like
slope
if
is
I
more in
move,
dou J by dou W2.
Right. If I move a small in this direction, I will be hitting the valley. Okay, more quick, more faster. Right? If I am moving in this direction, I will be slowly hitting the valley. Right? So if the things in this, it is all like this. In this, it is quickly like this, right? So what happens? So dou j by dou W2, okay, this will be this much. Okay, this much. Okay, for a small change, whatever, if I move a small change here, okay, so the that means for the same value of movement in W1 and W2, if I see, okay, dose A by dou W2 will be much higher, okay, than dose A by dou W1, right? So when I do the update, what happens? See what I'm doing. W now is a vector, okay. So in this, delta W2 will be much higher than delta W1, right? Is this fine or not? So for that reason, I may be moving like this, okay, again jumping like this, again moving like this, again jumping like this, again moving, jumping, okay, and then moving, jumping, and moving, jumping, okay, and finally I converge here. Okay, in fact, this will keep increasing when I reach to the value. Is this clear? Is this clear or not? That means I will not be, okay, so what I'm doing, I will not be progressing towards the minima, okay, in a smoother way. So I will not be progressing, say for example, from here to here like this. Instead, I will be moving towards one of the direction much more, okay, because the slope in this direction is more, and since the slope in other direction is smaller, okay, I will move in this in the other direction very small. Okay, so that's what happens for each of the updates, right or not? Is this clear or not? Because we are updating W at once. So W delta W1, delta W2 we are calculating. Okay, in this delta W2 is much higher. So what shall happen? This implies that delta W2 being much higher implies that, okay, W2 T plus 1, okay, will be much higherly, like will have a big movement, okay, compared to W2 T. This implies what? W2 T plus 1 minus W2 T, okay, will be higher than W1 T plus 1 minus WT. Is this clear or not? No, is this clear or not? Whenever we have a gradients different in W1 and W2 directions, okay, so this can happen. Is this clear or not?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So this is the second issue. Okay, so this is actually a second limitation when we use stochastic gradient descent. See, this we have seen only in 2 dimensions. In general, how many dimensions we may have for the weights, or how many weight elements we need to update? How many weight elements in convolutional networks, for example? No? Of order of what? Order of hundreds?
Yes, sir.
I only order of hundreds. You people have not seen any convolutional network before? See how many kernels we may have. 72 kernels at a given each 5x5. Okay, in one layer. That itself is in thousands, right? So like that, if we have actually 128 kernels, each 5x5. Okay, 1024 kernels also one can use. Each 5x5 or 7x7. Okay, so like that, 512 kernels. So if we see total number of weight elements to be updated in a convolutional neural network will be of order of millions. Okay, so you need to update millions of parameters in that million dimensional space. Okay, do you think that this is not common to have actually one in one direction very smooth? Okay, no gradient change at all. In another direction, there is a jump. Okay, do you expect that to happen or not to happen? When you have large number of dimensions.
It will happen.
Yeah, it will happen. Okay, similarly, having the local minimas or the constant cost regions is also quite common. Because what happens? Okay, most of the time you can't see that the cost in all dimensions. When you have hundreds and millions of dimensions, in all dimensions, cost won't vary. Only in few dimensions, cost may vary. So this is also quite common, and this is also quite common. Okay. So these issues to counter, what we can try to do is we try to modify the learning rule. Okay, or stochastic gradient update rule. So let me now give a couple of suggestions. If you have any suggestion, you can tell me how we can update or improve this. Any based on your previous knowledge, you want to comment something? So how should we update? So what we can do is we can calculate the velocity. That means the movement from previous position to current position. Okay, so the change in gradients, the change in gradients. Okay, that's velocity. So it's essentially, so what we can do is see previously you might be moved in this direction. The idea let us have. So previously you might have moved in this direction. Okay, so now you have moved in this direction. So what essentially is happening, if you see the change in change, it is still in this direction. So essentially you are still, when there is a loss becomes 0 here, why don't we move still in the same direction where we have been moving? Okay, so previously you are moving in this direction. Since currently we don't have any loss information, dou Z by dou W or delta W. So continue moving in the same direction further. Okay, so since if you don't have any information here, still move in the same direction. When you have a loss increasing, then you may try to move in this direction. But if the momentum, this is referred to as momentum term. Momentum means we are using the moment in which we are doing in the previous steps. Same direction we pursue further. Okay, that's a momentum term. Okay, so let's have the momentum in the same direction till you get any other information. Okay, so that's what is being done. How do we do this? Say, let us see previous delta W1, delta W2. So difference between delta W2 minus delta W1 will give us, okay, in what direction you are moving. Okay, so essentially in which direction previously you are moving, in the same direction let us move. Okay, so so it's essentially what we are doing is it's not the difference, it is sum. Okay, sum of the movements in the direction. Okay, delta W1 plus delta W2 essentially. Okay, so like that you keep accumulating the direction in which you are moving and move in the direction. Now what happens when you come here? Okay, at this location, for example, what happens? The direction is, slope is increasing. So you tend to move in other direction. So what is slope is suggesting to move in this direction. Okay, and the momentum is suggesting in this direction. Okay, so we can have a balance and move in this direction if the momentum is good. And then subsequently we may reach out to the second local minimum. Okay, so like that. So there is a provision at least to jitter from the, okay, constant cost regions. Is this clear? So how do we do this? Through equation is, let's calculate the velocity. So what's the velocity? So velocity is the movement. So previous velocity, whatever we had, initially it is 0 minus what we have actually. So some beta times, or directly you can take delta W. Okay, so now weight update rule with this velocity term is equal to what? Wt minus eta times V of t. Okay, here it is plus eta times because minus is here. Okay, so you can see here. So if you effectively use this, what's happening? The velocity, if you see, you are starting from 0, right? And accumulating the weights every time with same sign. Okay, and hence what happens? You get the momentum or the velocity in which direction you are moving. That also gets added to the same direction to the weights. Okay, and in case of 0 slope, this term will take over. Okay, why we have put eta here, like rho here? Rho here is, we don't want to take exactly the same value. Okay, we want to take the corresponding accumulated value with some, okay, with some reduction or with some, okay, learning parameter, again some variable with some modulation. Okay, Is this clear? So V of 1, if we start, okay, initially it is equal to delta W 0. Okay, if we start from this, and then V of 2, if you see, okay, what's happening here? Oh, V of 1. Okay, so no rho times anyway V of 1 minus delta W 1. Okay, so and then V of 3 rho times V of 2 minus delta W 2. Okay, so this if you substitute now, rho times, okay, V of 1 is nothing but delta W naught, okay, minus delta W 1. So you can put actually V of 2 means all this, right? So rho square times delta W, rows times delta W1 minus delta W. Okay, so that the weight differences keep accumulating, okay, except for the initial moment. Okay, so is this clear? And that will essentially get used to update the gradient descent. In the in addition to the gradient descent.
So, sir, this acts like something like a low pass filter, is it?
Yeah, this acts like it's more than saying low pass filter. This is referred to as momentum term. We are essentially what we are doing is we are moving in the same direction where we have been moving, where there is no information. This is gradient descent. Okay, so momentum update and then gradient descent update. Okay, so in some cases, gradient descent update may take over, especially where you have very good slope information. If you don't have slope information, the momentum term will take over. So it's like, okay, so where there is no clue from the cost function, you move in the same direction for time being, don't stop it there. And want to see little more, see what happens if you have this kind of loss curve. Okay, so due to momentum, what happens? You may be moving in this direction. So in this direction, for if you are here, okay, in this direction, in this direction, in this direction, here you don't stop it, because what's happening previously you're moving in these directions, right? So you will still move in this direction, okay, because of momentum term. Okay, update. So now what happens? Once you move in this direction, the gradient descent update start working. If you move in this direction through momentum, okay, the gradient descent is again this direction. So gradient descent will again try to oppose. Okay, so both will set a balance. Also, because here gradient descent will take over. Okay, so because this slope is very high, it will take over and then you can't move. The momentum itself will change its direction. Right after a while, after a couple of iterations, if you see, if you are still moving in this direction, okay, what will happen? If you are still moving in this direction, okay, the momentum term itself will be negative. Okay, and then what happens? Anyway, it will be in opposing the previous momentum. Okay, and hence it balances and then you will settle at the minimum. Is this clear? So what it essentially helps is, it helps in constant regions. Okay, it also helps in small local minima. Okay, to reach a bigger local minima or global minima. We can't ensure that it reaches global minima. See, if this is the case where you have actually, okay, so the global minima is still, still like this. Okay, you may or may not reach to this global minima, but at least you will be able to reach to this global minima. Okay, you may not be struck. You may not be struck at this local minima. So you may reach up to at least here. Okay, and you may reach here. You may or may not reach this based on the like effective moment or momentum term. How much weight we give to momentum term. Is this clear? Rho is usually set to 0.9, so that we want to decrease a little bit this accumulation of the velocity or the accumulation of the gradients over till that time. Is this clear?
Yes.
So this is referred to as stochastic gradient descent plus momentum. Okay. See, this can be written in different equations. So this is one set of equations which will describe it. Okay, so the other set of equations people also use sometimes to use the momentum term. So rho times V of t plus delta WT they will write. Okay, so in such case, what they do, constants also vary. They just, it can be, they're all equivalent, minus eta times V of t. Okay, so you can also write in this way or in this way. This way also it exactly does the same, except that, so initial time onwards, it keeps adding, okay, WT. And then anyway, eta minus eta times VT takes care that you are essentially going in that direction. Because this is actually, this is a recursive equation. This is also a recursive equation. This is used through recursive equation that takes care of. Right. So is this clear?
Yes, sir.
Right. See, but what happens to the second problem we have? So do you think that this momentum term, will it be able to counter the second problem that we had? Second problem that we had, as you have seen, is an imbalance in the updates, weight update, dou J by dou Ws in different Ws. Okay. So if this is the case, if this still has in the cost, do you think that this momentum term can take care of it? See what's happening now in one dimension, say if I write in vector form, okay, V of t plus, so V1, so if I write just for writing, for simplicity, I'm writing like this. Okay, so people also write in this way, delta W1, delta W2. So what I have written here, I have written a computer command kind of format, okay, where you can easily understand this, right? Plus equal to means it's V plus equal to W means, you know, right? V equal to V plus W. You know, right? This is over iterations. Anyway, we take t plus 1 for this. Okay, and then t for this. Hope you people know it. Okay, and if you do, what happens over more and more, if this is different from this, you are accumulating that even more, and it will even give a serious problem. Okay, so this is not annihilated by this process. Okay, we will see in the next class. Okay, what else past term like modifications can be done to the optimization function to take care of the second issue that we had, and both issues in fact we have discussed. Thank you. If you have any very quick questions, you can ask. Otherwise, thanks. Bye.
So one last thing
Yeah.
about the programming assignment, sir. So hello students. So programming assignment will be mostly uploaded by today evening or afternoon. So along with the programming assignment, so we are uploading. We may upload like 3 .py files just for your reference and one base code. Please don't completely copy paste the base code. We just want you to take the idea from that base code, because it's for your simplicity only, but please don't completely copy paste the base code.
Yeah, Sumant, anyway, since students may have next class now, so
Yes.
you anyway, I hope you will also be writing them, right? In the
Yes, yes, sir.
like we will discuss in the next class again. So far.
Okay. Yes.
Thanks. Then. Yeah.
Yes.
Bye to all.